the last Wednesday of every month to make sure that I could get to meet people and people could access me a lot more easily. And in the lead up to kind of my starting work, I was doing little videos on social media talking about why, you know, the time is now for cooperatives, and I talk about different industries. And then on my very first surgery, and I get notes off my team, I don't know who's going to join me until the day, and on my very first surgery, I got this really grumpy note off a gentleman saying, I can't believe you're not talking about care. It's the most important thing we should be talking about. It's a growth area for our sector. We need help. We need support. And he's absolutely right. So it was always my intention to come and talk to you today. I was just going to give the overview, Cheryl, of how we're going to run the session. Is that okay? And Cheryl, before I start that, do you just, for the people that have just joined us, you want to formally introduce yourself before I do that?
Okay, my name's Sheryl Barrett. A lot of you might know me from Change Agents, which is the co-op that I am part of. Some others may know of me from the Co-op Party. I am the co-chair of the Disability Forum / Network of the Co-op Party. I used to be the vice chair and on the NEC. And yeah, I'm currently on, I'm getting tired now, you can tell. I'm currently on the board of Co-ops UK. So I've been around the co-op world a fair old bit. So yeah, that's me. If you don't know me, I'm sure Veronica will give out my email later if anybody wants to follow up on any of the things that we've discussed, because Veronica and myself with Mervyn have been working quite closely recently. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. And Cheryl, as Veronica just said, if you've not had breaks, please, if you just need to leave at any point and take a comfort break, please do that, especially given the subject matter we're talking about, very aware.
I'm going to put my feet up, so that'll help. So if I disappear, it's because I need to put my feet a bit closer to my heart just to keep the blood pumping. So there you go. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay then, so what we're going to do in this session, I've kind of got two big ticket items, if you like. Like I said, taking a leaf out of Mark's book, I'm predominantly here to learn. That's me as a person, and as well because Co-ops UK is going through its strategy process at the moment, and you know, really excited that we shared this week the Co-op economy report, which is on the uk.coop website if you've not seen that. And this sector, the cooperative sector, has, you know, grown by 1.1 billion in the pandemic. Now, a lot of that is in retail. You know, the shop at the end of our street became really important. But actually, that's the point. Our street became important. Our communities became important. People really began to connect with their localities in a need. In a way that the pandemic really sort of brought about, but also people kind of enjoyed that reconnection. And people have, you know, really, the pandemic really exposed, as I'm sure you've spoken about a lot in the past 2 days, you know, brutally exposed how broken our care system is. I think we knew that already. You guys certainly did. But, you know, the pandemic really brought that to the fore and has shone a spotlight on that. The pandemic demonstrated the inequalities across the whole of the UK. And this is why I believe we have a real moment in the cooperative sector, because people are looking to have a stake, to have a say, you know, this idea of shared ownership. You see it even in things like ESL with the fan-led football clubs. We've had more inquiries. We've been doing community booster shares for football clubs as a result of that. People do want to take control. People do want to find a fair and equitable way to do business, live our lives, deliver our services. And I really do believe that this is a very small window, actually. We've done quite a bit of research into this, but when pandemics happen, when they do happen every 100 years or so, even back to the ancient plagues, you know, the whole kind of thinking through a pandemic is this can't carry on. We can't return to normal, you know. And it's sad to say that quite quickly we do. So I'd like to be the generation, if you like, that really makes that difference, and particularly in this sort of exposed area of care work. So yeah, the pandemic's really brought that to the fore. And then what's also happened, you know, the other reason, even prior to the pandemic, where I believe that we've got a major opportunity for the cooperative sector, is what's happening in tech as well. So there's a whole series of developments in tech, not least the rollout of 5G across the world, robotics, nanotechnology, which will transform health, the spatial web, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence as a service. All these technologies are stacking up really quite quickly together, resulting in what I believe will be the absolute pivotal decade for mankind that we're just entering. You might have heard of it referred to as Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution. But, you know, the potential and the rate of change that will take place across this decade will absolutely dwarf all the other industrial revolutions. And you're starting to see why that's relevant in the care sector, because of, you know, I know you've got Emma from Equal Care Co-op here. But I guess there's two reasons really. It is one, the idea that if you take the cooperative principles, particularly around one member, one vote, and put that into technology like a platform, you get some really interesting shared power and shared decision makings, where you've got the suppliers as well as the beneficiaries and users of a service all having an equal say. Well, of course, you know, Equal Care Co-op are looking at, you know, ensuring that means that, you know, the wages and the conditions of the workers are, you know, relevant to be able to do their job, and the people who are buying those services know that the people that they're booking and can build up a relationship that they're booking, but they've got the right conditions to work in. So the tech bit is also really, really important. So what I want to do today, when I've kind of finished giving you the overview, I will be handing over to Sheryl, because we want to hear from you. I want to feed in our next strategy session at our board is about, you know, what sectors do we need to be in and why, you know, and how do we make those decisions? Because Co-ops UK, there's a lot of strain on Co-ops UK. You know, there's energy, housing, you know, all sorts of different sectors that are, you know, really do need that cooperative difference. Then there's all sorts of people, you know, we're not that diverse as a movement, so we need to look at that. And then there's also types, there's all different types of co-ops, whether that's worker co-ops or multi-stakeholder co-ops, you know, through platforms. And actually what we've got to work out as a board is where we put our you know, resource and where we put our efforts. That would be remiss of us to do that without understanding what you think we should be doing. You know, very much, you know, in terms of lobbying, for example, what are the things that are causing you the problems? That's what we want to hear about. We also want to understand what's working well. You know, so if there's great projects that are already, you know, that you know, we're not aware of, that would make good federal, for example, or would, you know, enable us all to work together more effectively under principle number 6, of course. We want to hear about all that. So we're going to absolutely do that. In the bulk of this session will be for me in particular to listen, and you guys to share with us what those what we need to do so that we can feed that into our board strategy sessions. But the other thing, and then we'll do this at the end, but there's a major opportunity actually, because like I said, we've not only have we got this kind of moment in time where, you know, the cooperative sector and this idea of, you know, ownership, you know, in delivery is coming to the fore. But we've also got a growing number, Sheryl touched on it as part of the Co-op Party, but we've got a growing number of Labour and cooperative mayors across devolved powers. You know, so those are the people that really do want to embed cooperation into their regions. So I am very fortunate also to be the social enterprise advisor for Greater Manchester, directly advising our mayor, Andy Burnham, who is, of course, a Labour and cooperative mayor, and who also has a lot of knowledge and understanding because of his previous role as health secretary in the distant past when Labour were in power. And so he's got a lot of knowledge, and he really cares, and he really gets this. So Andy came to me really early on, and for those of you that haven't seen Andy's manifesto, it's absolutely full of, we want to embed cooperation into the city region, and also a real focus on community wealth. And it's a big subject matter, again, across that wider social enterprise sector in Greater Manchester with the LEP as well, just understanding generative wealth and how, all co-ops, because all co-ops distribute power and all co-ops anchor wealth, how that generative wealth is enabled rather than the extractive wealth that you trying to get in the more sort of traditional private models where they're funded by tech by VCs or, care businesses by shareholders, and decisions then made by the few, And what you do also see in the tech sector because of that is that monopoly, big monopolies in tech, but that clunkiness and the lack of social consideration because of the way the business models are worked through. So when I was appointed, wonderfully appointed by the Co-operatives UK board and management team, one of the first people that I did go to see was Andy Burnham. And I was in the middle of delivering some consultancy work for Andy. So it was a very practical conversation to kind of go, I need to wind down out of this and hand it over to the young people. And I've got this amazing new role that I want to tell you about. Andy was absolutely over the moon because he wants to embed cooperation into Greater Manchester, and he wants solutions continuously every time in the year preceding that. Every time Andy came to the Greater Manchester Social Enterprise Advisory Group, he'd say, can anyone fix care, please? Is there any help I need help, I need ideas, There's a lot going on in Greater Manchester. You might have just seen the Marmot review come out as well. There's going to be a community wealth hub. But the exciting thing that I want to tell you and share with you today is that because of that ambition and enthusiasm, Andy wants cooperatives basically to pitch a pilot, a pilot that can be done in Greater Manchester, that potentially can also be done across Andy's saying the mayoral M62 corridor, which is Steve Rotherham and Tracy Braben. But we have got Dan Jarvis. He's not quite on the M62, but he is Labour and cooperative. So we're going to have a pitch opportunity in the autumn, and we're going to be taking 3 sectors, care being one of them, subject to what you guys come up with in that, to be able to say what a pilot could be and how we could do this in terms of being able to put something forward. It'll be a little bit like a cooperatives Dragon's Den for the mayors. They might not take any of them, they might take all of them. There's no set agenda. And like I say, at the end of this session, we'll be looking at precisely what I need you to do to take up that potential opportunity. So I'll make sure that by past, we've got half an hour now to kind of talk about what is going on and what your thoughts are around what Co-ops UK can do. And in the last 15 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about this mayoral opportunity with devolved power and what we can do and what the timescales around that are going to be. I'm also seeing that there's various questions and comments coming up in the chat as well. So do keep adding those in, and if there's specific questions, drop them in there as well, and we'll try and get to all of them. But for now, like I say, I'm going to hand over to Sheryl, who's going to convene this next part of the session. It's as simple as that. What can Co-ops UK do to, other than give you loads and loads of money that we haven't got, by the way, because I'm sure that's the real answer. But what can Co-ops UK do to support the development of cooperative care? So over to you, please, Sheryl.
Okay. As I've just said, I am the co-chair of the Co-op Parties Forum on Disability. I know that there are other cooperative organisations and people out there. For instance, in Sheffield, there's Simon Duffy and the Citizen Network, which is a cooperative. There's Chrissy Malidi out there that works with early years and human rights. So there's a lot of co-ops and cooperators that never get a chance to come together, speak with each other, and to look at this issue. So what I'm going to do is bring together, convene a group of people. We were discussing co-production earlier. It will be co-produced. And to that end, I've already been to the Disability Forum of the Co-op Party. And the Co-op Party, by the way, is also at the moment consulting on cooperative care. So we need to pull all these strands and all these things together. As we were saying earlier, the other people, the ones who control our money, have got joined up thinking. We need to get our own joined up thinking. So if you find an email from me saying, can we have some dates to get together, don't be shocked or surprised. Don't anticipate meeting people you haven't met before in the co-op movement, because they might not be, you know, part of the regular architecture, infrastructure, whatever, but they are out there. And if we're going to do this, and we're going to do this well, we need to bring all of us together, including older people, disabled people, and younger people who have care needs, as well as people who are looking to or who are currently providing care. So the invitation is going to go out to co-produce our model. And regardless of the Dragon's Den aspect of this, you know, this gives us, this is you know, it gets us together, if you like. But there's also an element of this, as Rose said, the board is looking at their strategy. So there is no way that we would be wasting our time by coming together, because we will be co-creating our own strategy that we want to give to Rose, that we want to give to Joe and the Co-op Party. And the Disability Network have already agreed that they will provide the secretariat for this. So again, it will be disabled people who are convening this, who are bringing this together. Veronica, I will be calling upon you as well and dragging you into this. Think of it as part of the day job. It will be mutual and shared. It will be helpful. So what we're looking for, you know, from the 3 days that are happening now, the people who want to be part of this, please get in touch in the first instance with Veronica, because she's got Mervyn and myself's details. And then we'll be able to put you on the list of interested people who want to be part of this, with others who've not been able to be here over this 3-day session. And we'll be having some sessions together out with this to move it forward. So thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. So has anybody kind of got? I'd like to open the floor now to kind of hear from you. You know, what is Co-ops UK's role at this point? You know, what can we do to help? And Veronica, how are you taking questions? Is it electronic hands? Are people waving at us? And can you help me? Because I can't see everything.
Yeah, we're doing a mixture. So let's see if anybody has got questions straight away, and then I can look at the chat and see whether there's anything else to pick up. So
right, I can see Duncan McGibbon so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, and congratulations are due, I think, to the Labour movement as a whole today. So I'm feeling upbeat, but at the same time, I think I'm always a little bit concerned about entrepreneurism and cooperation. One of the great failures that I've witnessed in my 60 years of active life, so to speak, active political life, is that we have created top-down authoritarian structures which are very defensive in health and in other organizations too. And they want to turn in on themselves. So what proposals do you have to be able to encourage, I would say, robust collaboration between the different groups that you're going to need to involve in order to create a properly co-productive service?
That question for me, Duncan?
Yep, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. And I'll be very honest with you and say we don't know yet. That's what we're working through on our strategy. You know, we absolutely need to be inclusive, as you say. And, you know, there's very much an understanding at Co-ops UK that this isn't top down. And like I said, that's why I've come today, because you are the people that matter. You are the people on the ground that know what needs doing. And the last thing we're going to come in is dictate to you how that should be done. I think there's some real challenges ultimately in the care sector around the market failure. There's an absolute market failure in that, you know, the commissioning budgets from the local authorities are not enough money, you know, and that is a massive problem. So that's where I'm going. So what do we need to be doing to help you? Is that a lobbying issue, for example? But in terms of what you're saying, Duncan, I think we need to be cooperatively entrepreneurial. You know, that is my point really about social enterprise. You know, we need to think about things really differently. We need to think about coming from the outside. And if we try and go straight in at the middle and try and get funds unlocked and the whole system changed, we're just going to end up, you know, in a futile situation where we're just banging against our heads against a brick wall. So I'm kind of going, what are the things that we can start to push from the outside in? You know, so that could be cooperative GP surgeries, that could be giving more support to development of platforms like Equal Care Co-op. Yeah, you know. So you know, I you point about enterprise and, you know, particularly, like I say, this generative and extractive wealth. I completely agree with you. I don't want to see, you know, any further growth of private organisations in the care sector. Absolutely not. But I absolutely want to see entrepreneurial ideas from the cooperative sector, and that's absolutely what Sheryl is going to, you know, try to support and convene. But yeah, we don't know, Duncan. So I'm hoping by the end of today I'll know a lot more. But we are absolutely working on it. So I think Chris Cook is next.
Yeah, thanks very much. Good to meet you, by the way. I've heard a lot about you, all of it good. Now, I'm a senior research fellow at it's called the Institute for Strategy, Resilience and Security at University College London. And it was something I was asked to do after the financial crash to see if we could come up with a more resilient financial system than the one that came so close to a complete meltdown, you know. And in the last 10 years, I've been sort of working at strategic level on the one hand, but also on the principle that resilience is bottom up. I've been doing action research where I live here in Scotland on, well, how can we actually, you know, have cooperation in practice? And what I've been doing is, you know, some people collect exotic butterflies, I collect exotic corporate forms. And what I've been doing basically is working my way in practice, breaking things, working on, you might call it legal design, but coming up with, you know, new sort of ideas and thinking about how we can actually practically collaborate. Now, there's a couple of things that come from this. I mean, I'm here in Scotland. I'm a member of the Scottish Co-operative Party, but I'm not a member of the Labour Party. They're unionists. I'm a strong believer in independence. Forget Holyrood. They're as top down as Westminster. Sorry. You know, I think West Lothian questions have West Lothian answers. You know, I believe that independence is not about, it's about where control is exercised. Okay, and that's what it is, and it should be at the point of service delivery. So I'm interested in how we can achieve that, and within what agreements, not organizations, we've got enough organizations, agreements, within what agreements we can achieve that. Similarly, cooperation is not about cooperatives necessarily and 19th century legal forms that have been genetically modified for 150 years, right? The problem with the sharing economy is, Rose, shareholders don't share, landlords don't share, and lenders don't share. It's all about how can we come up with risk sharing, cost sharing, surplus sharing agreements. And I pointed, before you arrived, I was pointing out machinery rings here in Scotland. Farmers spontaneously started sharing machinery, contractors, aggregating buying, aggregating service provision, and created now it's a federation of machinery rings, which are really lightweight. So farmers compete on quality, they still compete, but they cooperate on costs. And that approach, simple, lightweight platform with a little team of service providers who they share the costs of, we could really rapidly roll that out, bottom up, throughout the UK. It already is in England to some extent. So that's one angle. Risk sharing is another way of doing it. Internationally, the ship owners share risks internationally and have done for 150 years. It's not a centralized risk insurance, it's mutual assurance. That's another agreement between ship owners. They're called clubs, P&I clubs. Nobody's ever heard of them, but it's a multi-billion-dollar business. Social enterprise, you could call it. Among some of them, the scum of the earth. Okay, so, you know, but they all have a common interest in mutual assurance. So what I'm observing and what I'm working on, and now I'm actually practically rolling out what we're calling smart acceleration. This is in the energy field. I was a director of a global energy exchange. I designed the UK natural gas futures market, but I'm better now. Okay, so what we can do, for me, energy is the key. You know, it's a core need that everybody has. So I'm working on put together a small sort of, just a partnership to start with. We call it a smart accelerator. The idea is to smartly accelerate the development of the new generation of infrastructure that we need. And its cooperation has to be embedded within it, Rose. It's integral to it. Question is, how we do this means a fundamental shake-up for, I think, the cooperative movement. I'm up for it. Nobody listens to me in Scotland. I'm just a radical who's, you know, most of them are Labour, hardcore unionists, and, you know, well, you know, it's just me sounding off again. But I can tell you, if Co-op doesn't go down this road of opening up to other parties, this, you know, uncooperative, exclusive relationship with Labour, and I used to be Labour, I'm still, Solidarity's in here, but not as it currently is. Sorry, a long and slightly political rant, but
yeah.
Over to those.
Okay, well, I'm going to come back to you, Chris. The politics I'm not going to even discuss because I'm not Co-op party, and that's not the role today. And Co-ops UK, you know, is actually a political, and we're working with all political parties on a whole host of stuff at the moment. So I'm less interested in the sort of the politics bit, but I'm really interested, Chris, in what you're talking about in terms of, you know, what we can share and what can we share in care, you know, because it's a very, you know, can we share customers? Can we share knowledge and data? Can we share it? Like what can we share? If you're looking at that shipping example or the farming example, what is it? And it might not just be you, Chris, answering this. I'm genuinely interested from the providers out there, you know, what benefits?
Just a quick response. Farmers have land. We were talking earlier about co-housing, right? New approach to co-housing, new form of funding co-housing, right? You know, that to me is a number one answer to your question, is let's come up with new ways of bringing carers and the cared for together. You know, the way in which we can finance things across the generations is something I've written about. For instance, imagine care credits exchanged for rental credits. The idea of a rental credit is not a new one. It's been around for 1,000 years, right? There are tools which are available, Rose, which I think we could maybe prototype with a proof of concept. That is my approach always. You know, it's what we have to do. And if you're looking at that in Manchester, more power to your elbow. I'm working with Graham, who's on this call, on mutual credit. That's how we can kickstart SMEs and get them, you know, they're all in desperate straits. We can come up with, imagine a B2B credit card, for instance, but between businesses. Well, it works in Switzerland right now, right? There are things that we can do which, you know, are not conventional. They're complementary. They're additional to the existing tools. We can start them now. Okay, so I'm into practical solutions, Rose, implementable now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love that you're doing action research, and I'm very of the Japanese gender approach. So I'm going to bring it back. So Chris, not necessarily if you don't know the answer to this, but you know, the rest of the group then, from what Chris is talking about. So what are the equivalents in care? You know, what is that mutuality? What are the things that we could be doing more effectively together? And Sue's got a hand up. Hello, Sue.
Hi. Sorry, I've been having to dip in and out of the call because I've been out delivering care.
Well, that's way more important.
So I'm the nominated individual for the co-op, going through this journey with Graham and Veronica and others. We're up and running now. One of the major problems that we face is that your overheads are massive at the start because you need a registered manager and you need all the office stuff and you don't have any income coming in. And so the startup is a really big issue. And we did get the community share funding for that. And that was helpful, but not everybody could manage that. We are still making a loss, and so we're spending that, and we would hope to give that money back at some point. The overheads, so we want to stay really small, but the overheads for a small organisation are broadly similar to the overheads for a larger one. You pay office space, you have to have a registered manager, whether you've got 4 people who you're supporting or 400. So that's quite a big issue for us. I think that we procure at the moment it's slightly different because of the COVID support that we get with procuring PPE, but procurement for a small organisation is more costly because you don't buy in such bulk. So I think if there's some way of the other issue for us is which bringing it down to real practicalities is out of hours support. So there are 3 of us that share the out of hours phone, but that's quite onerous because it is every day, 7 days a week up till 10 o'clock at night, and so that's quite difficult. So you know, we thought, well, maybe we could share that with another organisation locally, but the way that that organisations like ours are encouraged to compete, not collaborate, sometimes doesn't support that. So I suppose that's what I would say. Until you are sustainable, then the threat of not making it work hangs over you all the time.
So that's really interesting. What is your organisation? Where are you from?
Con Valley Care Co-operative.
Right, okay.
So so we now have I think 8 or 9 people who use our services. We've had such fantastic feedback. The other thing that we have done, which we've gone out on a bit of a limb, because the local authority funded us to be an anchor organisation during COVID, and so we had somebody in post, and what we wanted to do there was, so that one of the principles around the co-op, people may know, is that we want to help people live a life, not just have a service. So where you talk, Cheryl, about stay at home, we want to, you know, actually we might meet Maslow's bottom thing, but we don't, you know, all the other stuff that people want. And, you know, I'm not looking forward to a time when I get 4 calls a day and bugger all else. None of us are. You know, I want to carry on living my best life. And that might involve getting out, and it might involve, you know, sharing a soap opera with somebody over Zoom. I don't know what that'll be when I get to that age. But so anyway, so the top and bottom is that we have gone out on a limb, and this is costing us more, to appoint a community manager. And so what we want is to try to stop that separation between what you're eligible for and the rest of your life, because none of us separate that out. So our dream is that, you know, when we go out and see people, we've got a certain amount of money to pay for what they're eligible for. But actually, we then talk to them about, but in your wider life, what would you like to do? So when we're starting to do some really, really interesting things with the few people who we're working with, but it's a big, but that's quite costly to do that, especially when you're starting off, and that will never earn us any income. What we hope it'll do is it'll be one of our unique selling points, but it's not going to generate income. We're doing that because we believe it's the right thing to do. So all of those costs are quite onerous in the first instant, you know, when you're setting up.
That's really helpful, Sue. And this is what I mean about being entrepreneurial and looking at, you know, like some of those overheads and things, and you know what's coming, as we know, is you know, a lot more of the big retailers will be closing in city centres, and there's the community ownership fund coming, which will enable people to take over assets. So to be thinking entrepreneurial about, well, hang on a second, there's a few of us and we've all got an overhead, and you know, can we join together in some sort of community hub or whatever that might be. But that's really helpful, that, Sue. Thank you. Graham, hello.
Hi Rose. Yeah, just a quick one really. I think really excited by the possibility of putting something together for Andy Burnham and his team in Manchester. I think that, you know, with all of that opportunity, you know, the big caveat is, and I think you made the point very clearly at the beginning, is that, you know, there isn't enough money in the system, and you can't get away from that. You know, it's a fundamental underpinning of what's broken about what we're trying to look at here. Yeah, and Chris might have some solutions that can help to address that concern, but I think, you know, we can bring what we can do with cooperative models and our values and our principles is we can make all of that stuff add an enormous amount of value in terms of how you manage, how you deliver, how you work with communities and people that draw on care services. And I think that, you know, there's a huge amount of potential just in that, but it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve those underlying structural problems. So I think, you know, in any given situation, I'd say that a cooperative approach is going to add value and deliver better outcomes for everyone involved, but it's not going to change the infrastructural game, as it were, that underpins everything.
Yeah,
so if Andy's and his team are willing to understand that, you know, we're not going to come at them with any sort of magic solution that's going to solve that problem. I don't think they're going to have to, you know, it's their role, I suppose, as managers of that regional economic infrastructure to say, okay, if we're going to tackle that, then we're going to need to reconfigure our economy so that it actually puts people at the forefront rather than other issues.
That's brilliant, Graham, and I'm going to come back to the mayoral bit, but just sort of finishing up this session about the Co-ops UK bit and what we can do. Just in addition, I know you had Power to Change this morning, and hopefully they did talk about the community of practice convener that Power to Change and Co-ops UK are looking at working on, you know, to get a group of the kind of local authorities together who are passionate and care about this sector to enable there. And I just wanted to just check, I know we've got James right on the call as well, so I'm just checking or not whether there's anything before I kind of go on to the mayoral opportunity, James, whether there was anything else you wanted to add, say, or ask for anybody.
No, I don't think so, not at the moment.
Well, it's been great to have you, James. Right, good. Okay, right. So to Graham's point then about this mayoral opportunity, and like I say, you know, Andy's very much coming from that position of you know, like I say, asking for a silver bullet, and there's a big comprehension here to do with all of the mayors. And like I say, I don't know, I've not agreed yet whether we're going to do it just for Andy first and then pilot in Greater Manchester and try and extend it out, or whether we convene all of those mayors and look at that as like a city, like a northern city region pilot, basically. But either which way, whichever route we go, as Graham said, like this market failure around them not being enough money in the system, we've got two ways we can deal with this. We can either go, until there's enough money in the system, this cannot be fixed. So you, with your devolved powers, need to go and shout louder and make that happen. Yeah. And until there's more money in the system, it cannot be fixed. Or we might go the alternative route. We might say that's the crux of the matter. That's what you need to understand. However, these are the things that we can be doing now within the constraints that we've got now. And I want you to put your best foot forward. You know, this is going to be the true strength of cooperation. This isn't about kind of all the different groups that come in together, wanting to get a kind of, you know, in view of the mayor or whatever. We need to go, well, hang on a second. Let's think about what powers the mayor have got. Andy's got different powers to the other mayors anyway in care and social. And actually, the powers, as we all know, are often in the local authorities, not the city regions. So then that mayoral role becomes soft power with the local authorities anyway. And again, there's no verticals here. Somebody asked, you know, have we got cooperators on the LEP? Well, you know, the Manchester LEP's now got 3 social entrepreneurs, and I'm trying to think if any of those are running the co-op model, and I don't think they are. I do present to them every 6 months as well, and we kind of got them to put the social entrepreneurs onto the LEP board. And it's the same with the city regions. You know, it's not vertical. They're all dealing with different challenges, and they've got different responses from the local authorities. So we've got to be realistic about what we can do. So when you guys get together, go, what works, what can be done now? What are the things that don't rely on the mayors having to bring us, you know, something that they can't bring us? Let's think about what they can actually bring us. Is that the soft power? Is that they can, you know, harness, you know, the voice of people? Is that, you know, they have got some budgets in some areas, you know, through things like the Community Renewal Fund, for example. So we really need to think about going to them with something that they can actually do. And then also, again, this point about being entrepreneurial that we touched on with Duncan. I'm very entrepreneurial. That's where I come from. That's what I've grown up in. You know, I think I put my first event on at the age of 14, and I was an MD by the time I was 21. And what one of the negative connotations from being from Manchester I've observed is the term a blagger. You know, you can often be called you know, a Mancunian blagger, but I think that's a skill, blagging, because it means you got somebody to do something they weren't going to do for you otherwise, or you got somebody to pay for something, or you got somebody, you know, that's, you know, if you were born in Westminster, I'm sure it's called high level negotiation. But, you know, let's think about it in that context, because I've spent my life going, right, okay, what is it? I need X off you and I can't afford it. What is it that I've got that you need off me that we can do that exchange with? Yeah. And it's thinking about what we can go to the mayors with in that context. There might be something that's really easy for them to do, actually, and it might not involve cash, it might involve cash. And they don't even know that they need to do it for us, you know. So what are all those things that they can easily do that are a real challenge for us? And it might be because of their political power, it might be because of the power of the people they've got, it might be, you know, for whatever the structure of their organisation. Let's make it easy for them to say yes. And then the bit about, and this I'm going to come to you, Stuart, in a second, but this might give you more hands up, because I know what I'm about to say is going to be a real challenge. And so I'm just going to caveat it by saying that the very last thing that I said I want to say is you know, that the private organisations lead on this care agenda. But I'm not going to take away the fact that there is private money there. And I'm going to use the example of, I had 3 grandmas because my dad died when I was little, and I'm was very close to all my grandmas. And, you know, throughout the 80s, all of them had a home help, you know, and throughout that period, all of them, the home help absolutely became pivotal, you know, like Sue was saying, you know, to days out, to enrichment of life. They pretty much became part of the family in all of the 3 individual families as well. My 3 grandmas, you know, very sort of, you know, traditional, didn't, other than maybe in the war, didn't actually have jobs, you know, predominantly looked after the family. So my grandmas weren't necessarily, you know, wealthy at all in their own right, and all my granddads were kind of working class blokes. But the children had money, you know, like often our age group does now. Is there an opportunity, you know, to be able to put things in place that people can pay for because they want to? I think sometimes we get, I'm not saying this, I know what I'm saying is going to be slightly challenging. I'm just saying I used to observe it all the time. I used to see my grandmas getting the hampers from the schools because they were a certain age, you know, when it was like the harvest festival. It's like, oh, look, you know, we're going to take one round to Mrs. Marley, and she's got all that. My grandma didn't need that, you know, she wasn't out of food, yeah. And actually, if my gran wanted to do something that the home help or whoever could have enabled, we'd have paid for it, you know. And so I'm just saying, are there ways that we can kind of bring services together and bring money in? And I know it's dangerous what I'm saying, because it's not where I ultimately want it to be. But I'm just saying, can we show best practice? Not even necessarily that. I'm just saying, are there ways of doing things? Can we think about it really strategically about how we can chip away at improving things by thinking in an entrepreneurial cooperative way? Because absolutely, I want that to be through cooperatives and led by cooperatives. But if there is opportunities, you know, for things to be paid for outside of the public bodies, I think it's worth considering. And I've seen a note there from Brian Rhodes. Completely agree with you. You know, one of the richest nations. It's ridiculous. Like I say, I'm not opposed that if what the pitch is to the mayors is to go until this is sorted, nothing can be done, and that's the end of the pitch. You know, it's for you guys to come up with what those models are. I'm just saying, think differently, think entrepreneurially, think about things that they can actually do that could make a huge impact in your area. So I'm just going to go to Stuart and then back to Sue, please.
Hi, yeah. So thanks, Rose. Yeah. I'd just like to have a comment about. So I was involved in a study back in 2003, 2004, and it was a European study. It had no UK partners, but it included the Italian care co-ops, social co-ops, which are an enormous network. Now, what they concluded is that everything depends on the quality of partnerships with the key stakeholders, i.e. the local authority and those who are funding care and stuff. And it analysed in detail the types of partnership that can form and which ones are really conducive to the long-term success of a care co-op. We've had care co-ops before in the 90s. I remember some of them, like Wrekin Care Co-op and stuff. Not all of them kept going. People mentioned about the Sunderland one, which seemed to have a bit more, kept going a bit longer than many others. Yeah, so it's all about the quality of partnerships that are developed. Now, you mentioned about this sort of Dragon's Den type event with Andy Burnham and Tracy Brabin, and yeah, I mean, Dragon's Den is ultimately entertainment, and I'm wondering whether that sort of format is the best way to sort of develop long-term partnerships, really. I mean, also whether it's actually not. I'm in West Yorkshire. I'm in Colne Valley, so I'm here. It's really with the local authority, Kirklees, as opposed to like Tracy Brabin's office that a lot of the key partnerships are. So it's also important that they're involved as well, the local, the actual the borough, as it were, and not just the regional mayors. I think. I've got this report that somebody asked me for yesterday, so I sent out. Unfortunately, it was not on the web anymore. But I mean, really, I think the lessons that that they've learned from successful co-ops in other countries and sometimes the initiatives that have failed, and how to that it's so much. You see, cooperatives often arise from when the market has failed in some way or other, or where social initiatives or even government initiatives have failed. Often the cooperatives, end up being set up because people get together and think we must be able to do better ourselves. I mean, that's how the Rochdale Pioneers started. They thought we must be able to sort out, a flour that doesn't have arsenic or other rubbish put into it. And it goes through that. For housing co-ops, again, you know, they came from that. Workers co-ops, you know, a lot of them came from that sort of background. But there's others that came from like the friendly societies sort of history more, and mutual insurance and some of the things that Chris was mentioning really as well. That's another route. But in the care co-ops definitely are that, you know, we do see the big problems in our care system, and that is where the initiative and impulse has definitely come from for this type of co-op, I think. So yeah, we do, but yeah, I mean, so this study definitely says that it's the quality of partnerships that you build up with the key stakeholders that determines how successful they'll be. Sorry for the preachy rant.
No, it's good, and share that if you can, Stuart. And just to be clear, that I've just said that phrase, Dragon's Den, today. You know, it's not, the point is that it's about going into the mayors with, you know, an opportunity. Do you want to explore it, you know, within your city region? And if the answer is yes, then absolutely it's down to them to convene all the people that can make it happen and to build partnerships. I guess what I'm saying is it's an opportunity to get in front of those mayors and say, this is what we'd like to recommend. That's the bit that I'll be doing. I'll be putting you in front of them. The bit where then there's a hell of a lot of work to develop those partnerships and to turn that into something meaningful. It's a long and arduous journey. That's why I'm saying, think about going in with the things that you know you can do, because they've already been tried and tested, and you know what the ask is. Sue, over to you. I'm loving Sue. Sue's managing to care, eat a lunch, talk to us. That was great. Multitasking at its best.
Sorry, I'm just getting ready for the dance. I needed a bit of sustenance before I plough all my energy into that dance. So the couple of things that spring to mind. One is we talked yesterday about the rules. The rules often are set up to not to stop, but the effect is to stop small organisations from becoming sustainable. So, and I think there are ways of working around those rules, but the procurement, you know, we can't, the local authority can't procure services off us until we've delivered 400 hours. So, well, what I said before about when you start up, you're not profitable. It's going to be a long time before we can become profitable. And so, you know, if we could get services procured from the local authority instead of going just for direct payments, that would help us enormously. There's so many hoops that you need to jump through, some of which are the right ones and some of which just seem quite bizarre. I speak here as poacher turned gamekeeper because I was a director in the local authority before I retired. So I do, you know, I've been the operator of all those bad things. And then the other one, just quickly, is we had this idea of a care store at one point that people pay, and it's a bit like what you were saying, people pay in and can take out. It's a bit like time banking, but if people pay into a club that you can then take out of, because there's something uncomfortable for me about paying for a friend. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want my children to pay for me to have a friend. But actually, if you're part of a club where you can put in energy or money or resources of some sort, and then you can take out of that club, that feels much more like a cohesive, collaborative thing than a let's buy my mum a friend.
That's a really great comment, Sue. And Chris, I've seen your comments as well in the chat, and there's some really strong ideas there, you know, that bartering idea as well. So just before I wrap up and tell you the next steps, Cheryl, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'm really happy that Chris is here today and put in his contribution, because I've been banging on for a long time, decades, about the difference between taxation and contribution. And I think one of the things that we could do as cooperators is to explore contribution without exploitation. So I'm hoping that Chris is going to pick up the gauntlet and going to be one of the people that contributes to this. So I think we've all got a lot to put in here in terms of our shared experiences, etc. And if We can't, as cooperators, in the first instance, cooperate to meet this challenge. And we're not cooperators at all. The other thing I'd say is that Andy Burnham was the Minister for Health. He was the Minister of Health when we had the POPs pilot, which was the greatest pilot I've seen, piece of research in terms of prevention, co-production, etc. It was shelved. And Andy was part of looking at how we pay for care. So in terms of what we present, what he understands, what he knows, he could probably take quite a few of us here for a tata on that. So I don't think we need to kind of teach him how to suck any eggs. He knows where the eggs are and he knows how to suck them. What we need to do is explain to him how we can put together what we've got. We are where we are. I don't know if any of you have seen the film, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and she says to the person in the wheelchair, you know, she gives her the tray of food and she says, you couldn't do this to me if I wasn't in the wheelchair. And she says, but you are in that chair. We are in this chair. So all of us here would like to have a properly funded care service. We all would. Park that, it's a given. All of us want to do the best with what we've got now because we cannot just ignore it because it's not good. And we don't have the courage to go into it as it is now and try and extract the best value we can get for the people who are working in care or receiving care.
Excellent, and what a brilliant way to end. So yeah, here, you know, I'm going to hand over to you guys now. Sheryl pulled together that group. We need to put our best foot forward. I'll arrange for you to get in front of, at the very least, Andy, and let's say possibly them all together in the first instance. We are where we are. We can cooperate. We can come up with some ideas that can, you know, it will be a small contribution to that major challenge that we're facing. But small can always be significant. So I'm only a minute over. I'm hoping you're going to get your breaks back now. So thank you all so much for spending some time with me and giving me some great insight. And when we can, I look forward to meeting you in person as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Veronica.
Thanks, Rose.
Thank you both, Rose and Cheryl.